I rented my apartment to a woman named Chloe 2 years ago. She seemed perfect, quiet, responsible, a graduate student with impeccable references. We signed the lease, shook hands, and I moved to a smaller place across town, happy to have a reliable tenant covering my mortgage. For 2 years, the rent arrived on time, the apartment was maintained, and I had no reason to think twice. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, I got a notification from Airbnb. Not because I had a listing, because someone had used my credit card, the one linked to my account years ago, to book a stay at an apartment I didn't recognize. The address was mine. Let me rewind. My name is Maya. I'm 32, a graphic designer, and I own a 2-bedroom apartment in a trendy neighborhood. It's not huge, but it's mine, bought with savings, sweat, and a mortgage I've been paying down for 6 years. When I got a job that required me to move across town, I decided to rent it out rather than sell. The rental income covers the mortgage, and then some, and I get to keep the asset. Win-win. Chloe answered my ad within hours of me posting it. She was charming, articulate, and had references from previous landlords that glowed. We met for coffee, clicked instantly, and I offered her the place on the spot. She signed the lease, paid the first month's rent, and moved in that weekend. The first year was smooth. Rent on time, no complaints, occasional updates from Chloe about how much she loved the place. The second year started the same way. I had no reason to visit. The apartment was hers, and I respected her privacy. Then came the Airbnb notification. I stared at my phone, confused. I hadn't used Airbnb in years. The card on file was an old one, still linked to my account. Someone had booked a week-long stay at an apartment at my address. My apartment. Chloe's apartment. I logged into my Airbnb account, my hands shaking. There it was, a listing for my apartment, complete with photos I'd never taken, a description I'd never written, and a calendar full of booked dates. Chloe had been subletting my place on Airbnb, probably for months, probably making thousands of dollars, and I'd had no idea. I felt a surge of anger, so intense I had to sit down. This wasn't just a violation of her lease. It was a violation of my trust, my property, my rights as a landlord. I scrolled through the reviews. Dozens of them, all glowing. Great location, comfortable apartment. Host was very responsive. Host. Chloe was calling herself the host of my apartment. I clicked on the current booking. A woman named Sarah had checked in that morning and was staying for 5 days. Her profile photo showed a woman about my age, with dark hair and a smile that seemed oddly familiar. I stared at her face, something tugging at the back of my mind. Something I couldn't place. I called my lawyer, Priya, who'd helped me with the lease. She listened to the story, then asked one question. Do you want to evict her, or do you want to press charges? I didn't know what I wanted yet. I knew I was furious. I knew Chloe had broken the lease, broken the law, and broken my trust. But I also knew that evicting her would be a process, and pressing charges would be even harder. I needed more information. Can you find out how much she's made? I asked Priya. I can try. Airbnb doesn't make that information public, but if we file a lawsuit, we can subpoena their records. A lawsuit. The words felt heavy but also necessary. I decided to do some investigating on my own. I created a fake Airbnb account and messaged the listing, pretending to be interested in booking. Within hours, Chloe the host responded, warm and professional. She offered a discount for longer stays and mentioned that she'd been hosting for 2 years, with nothing but 5-star reviews. 2 years. She'd been doing this for 2 years. The entire time she'd been my tenant. I calculated the potential earnings. Her calendar showed bookings most weekends and many weekdays. At an average of $150 per night, she could have made $50,000 or more on my apartment, while paying me $2,000 a month in rent. The anger was now a cold, focused fury. I needed to see the apartment, not to confront her. That would come later. To document, to gather evidence, to understand the full scope of her operation. I waited until a day when her calendar showed no bookings. I drove to the apartment, let myself in with my key. I still had one for emergencies, and walked through the space that was supposed to be her home. It wasn't a home. It was a hotel. The living room had been rearranged to maximize space. There were fresh towels on the bed, a guest book on the nightstand, a basket of snacks on the kitchen counter. The closets were empty except for a few of Chloe's things, pushed to the side. She'd turned my apartment into a full-time Airbnb, and she wasn't even living there most of the time. I took photos. Lots of photos. Then I left, locked up, and drove home with my mind racing. The next step was confrontation. I texted Chloe. "We need to talk. When can you meet?" She responded within minutes. "Busy this week. How about next Monday?" I didn't wait. I showed up at the apartment the next evening when I knew she'd be there. Her car was parked outside. She answered the door in pajamas, clearly surprised to see me. "Maya, what are you doing here?" I walked past her into the apartment. "We need to talk about your side business." Her face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Airbnb, Chloe. I know about the listing. I know about the bookings. I know you've been running a hotel out of my apartment for 2 years. She started crying immediately, the kind of tears that felt rehearsed, performative.
"I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I needed the money."
"I didn't think it would hurt anyone." "You didn't think it would hurt me? The person who owns this apartment? The person who trusted you. I was going to tell you. I got in over my head." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of her listing, her calendar, her earnings. "How much have you made?" She hesitated. "About $40,000.
$42,000.
On my apartment. While I was paying the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance." "You have 30 days to vacate," I said. "And you're going to pay me back every dollar you made. Or I'm taking you to court." She nodded, still crying, still performing. I didn't believe a word of it. I left the apartment and drove home, my heart pounding.
$42,000.
2 years of betrayal. A friendship, if you could call it that, destroyed. But as I sat in my living room that night, replaying the confrontation, something else tugged at my mind. The current guest. Sarah. The woman whose face had seemed so familiar. I pulled up her Airbnb profile again and stared at her photo. Dark hair, brown eyes, a smile that felt like looking in a mirror. I showed the photo to my mother the next day. She went pale. "Maya, where did you get this picture?" "Airbnb." "Mom, what's wrong?" She sat down heavily. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago." "So, what is my mother about to reveal? And who is Sarah, really? Let me know your theories in the comments. Part 2 is about the secret that changes everything.
Subscribe.
My mother's hands trembled as she reached for the photo on my phone. She zoomed in on Sarah's face, her eyes filling with tears. "I never thought I'd see her again," she whispered. "After all these years." I felt the world tilt. "See who, Mom? Who is she?" My mother took a long, shaky breath. "Your sister. Your half-sister. I gave her up for adoption when I was 19, long before you were born. I never told anyone. Not your father, not you. I thought it was better that way.
But now."
She looked at me, her face a mixture of grief and hope. "Now she's found us." The story came out in fragments, interrupted by tears and apologies. My mother had been 19, in college, in love with a man who left when she told him she was pregnant. Her family, conservative and judgmental, had pressured her to give the baby up for adoption. She'd held her daughter once, named her Sarah, and then let her go. For 50 years, she'd carried the secret, the grief, the hope that someday, somehow, they might be reunited. "I searched for her online sometimes," my mother said. "But I never found anything. I assumed she didn't want to be found. And now she's here. In my apartment. Booked through a fraudulent Airbnb listing." My mother looked at me, hope and fear warring on her face. "Maya, you have to meet her. You have to talk to her." "Mom, I don't even know her. She's a stranger." "She's your sister." "Half-sister, yes, but still your sister. And she came here for a reason. Maybe she knows. Maybe she's looking for me too." I didn't know what to think. The woman in the photo, the woman whose smile mirrored mine, was connected to me by blood, by history, by secrets my mother had kept for 5 decades. And she was currently staying in my apartment, unaware that the woman whose home she'd rented was her own sister. I drove back to the apartment that evening, my mind racing. I didn't know what I was going to say, how I was going to explain. I just knew I had to see her. I knocked on the door. A woman answered, Sarah in person, even more striking than her photo. She looked at me with curiosity, then confusion. Can I help you? I took a breath.
I'm Maya.
I own this apartment. Her face shifted, embarrassment, then defensiveness. Oh, I'm sorry, I booked through Airbnb. Is there a problem? No problem. It's just. I hesitated. How do you tell a stranger that you might be related? Can I come in? There's something I need to talk to you about. She let me in, wary but curious. We sat in the living room, my living room, now filled with her things, and I tried to find the words. I know this is going to sound crazy, I began, but I think we might be related. Sarah stared at me. What? I showed her the photo of my mother. This is my mom. Does she look familiar? Sarah studied the photo, her expression shifting from confusion to something else. Recognition, maybe, or the stirring of a memory she couldn't place. I was adopted, she said slowly. I've been searching for my birth mother for years. I came to this city because, I don't know why, I just felt drawn here. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe you were meant to find us. We talked for hours after that. I told her about my mother, about the secret she'd kept, about the guilt and grief she'd carried. Sarah told me about her adoptive parents, loving, supportive, but never quite able to fill the hole of not knowing where she came from. She told me about the years of searching, the dead ends, the hope that wouldn't die. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers, promised to meet again, and agreed to involve my mother. I drove home in a daze, the weight of the day pressing down on me. The next day, I brought Sarah to meet my mother. The reunion was everything you'd imagine: tears, hugs, apologies, explanations. My mother held Sarah like she'd never let go. Sarah cried with relief and joy and grief for all the years they'd lost. I stood in the corner, watching, feeling like an outsider in my own family. This woman, my sister, was a stranger to me. We shared blood, but not history, not memories, not the bonds that make a family. Over the next few weeks, we tried to build those bonds. We had dinners, long conversations, awkward silences. We discovered we shared a love of hiking, a hatred of cilantro, a tendency to talk with our hands. We were sisters, learning to be sisters. But Chloe was still a problem. The tenant who'd brought us together was also the woman who'd betrayed me. And she wasn't going to go quietly. So, what happens with Chloe? And how does Sarah's presence change the fight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Part 3 is about the confrontation and the choice I have to make.
Subscribe.
Chloe's 30 days were up. She hadn't vacated. She hadn't paid me $1. She hadn't even responded to my lawyer's letters. When I drove to the apartment to see what was happening, I found her there, calm as ever, surrounded by boxes that looked like they'd been packed for show. I'm not leaving, she said flatly. I have rights. You can't just kick me out. I stared at her, this woman who'd stolen from me for 2 years, who'd turned my home into a hotel, who now had the audacity to claim she had rights. And then I smiled, because I had something she didn't expect. You're right, I said. I can't just kick you out. That's why I have this. I pulled out a folder and handed it to her. Inside was a lawsuit for breach of lease, for fraud, for illegal subletting, for conversion of property. Also inside was a subpoena for Airbnb's records, documenting every dollar she'd made, every booking she'd taken, every violation she'd committed. Chloe's face went pale as she scanned the documents. You can't prove anything. I already have. Airbnb cooperated. They gave me everything: your earnings, your bookings, your communication with guests. You made $47,382 over 2 years. That money belongs to me, under the terms of your lease. That's not true. The lease doesn't say. The lease says you can't sublet without my permission. You didn't have my permission. Every dollar you made is a dollar you owe me.
Plus dommage.
Plus legal fees. Plus interest. Chloe's bravado crumbled.
Please.
I'll pay you back. Just give me time. You've had 2 years. You've had 30 days. Time's up. I left her standing in the living room, the lawsuit in her hands, her world collapsing around her. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt tired. Tired of fighting, tired of anger, tired of the mess she'd made. When I got home, Sarah was waiting for me. She'd been staying with my mother, getting to know her, building the relationship they'd never had. But tonight, she wanted to talk to me. How did it go? She asked. As well as could be expected. She's not going down without a fight. Sarah nodded slowly. I've been thinking. About Chloe.
About how we met.
About everything. What do you mean? I mean, if it weren't for her, I might never have found you. Found Mom. Found this. She gestured around my apartment, at the life I'd built. She did something terrible. Yes. But she also, without meaning to, gave me something I've been searching for my whole life. I sat down, the weight of her words sinking in. She was right. Chloe's greed, her betrayal, her illegal scheme, it had brought my sister to my door. It had reunited my mother with the daughter she'd lost. It had given me a family I never knew I needed. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should let her off easy. Not completely, she should face consequences. But maybe we don't destroy her. Maybe we just let her go. I thought about it. The money, the betrayal, the years of trust violated. And then I thought about Sarah, about my mother's tears of joy, about the sister I was just beginning to know. I'll think about it, I said. The next day, I called Priya. Can we negotiate a settlement? Something that gets me my money back without destroying her? Priya was quiet for a moment. We can try, but she has to agree. And she has to actually pay. I called Chloe. She answered on the first ring, her voice small and scared. I'm willing to negotiate, I said. But you have to be honest with me. No more lies, no more games. You tell me everything, and we work out a payment plan. You keep fighting, and I take you to court and take everything. She agreed. We met at a coffee shop, neutral ground, and she told me the whole story. The financial desperation, the initial idea, the spiral of lies that kept her going.
She cried.
I listened. By the end, I didn't forgive her, but I understood. So, what happens in the settlement? Does she keep her word? And what does Sarah's presence mean for all of us? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Part 4 is about resolution, forgiveness, and the strange ways the universe works.
Subscribe.
The settlement took 3 months to finalize. Chloe agreed to repay $40,000 over 5 years, plus surrender the apartment within 60 days. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue criminal charges or publicize her actions. It wasn't justice, not really. She'd made nearly $50,000 off my apartment and would only pay back $40,000, with no interest, no damages, no real consequence beyond the humiliation of being caught. But it was something. And more importantly, it was over. Or so I thought. Because the day Chloe moved out, she left something behind. Something that would change everything, again. I found the box in the back of a closet, hidden behind some old coats Chloe had abandoned. It was small, plain, unmarked. Inside were photos, letters, and a journal. Not Chloe's, someone else's. Someone named Margaret. I sat on the floor of my empty apartment and started reading. The journal belonged to a woman who'd lived in this apartment decades ago. She'd written about her life, her loves, her losses. And she'd written about a daughter she'd given up for adoption. A daughter named Sarah. My hands shook as I turned the pages. Margaret had lived here in the 1970s, long before I owned the place. She'd been young, alone, pregnant. She'd made the same choice my mother had made, to give up her baby, hoping for a better life. But unlike my mother, Margaret had never stopped searching. The journal was filled with entries about her quest to find Sarah, about the private investigators she'd hired, about the dead ends and false hopes. The final entry was dated 1995. I've run out of money and time. I may never find her, but I hope, wherever she is, she knows she was loved. I hope someday she finds this place, This apartment where I spent my happiest years and feels my presence. I hope she knows I never stopped looking. I closed the journal, tears streaming down my face. Margaret had died without ever finding her daughter. But her daughter, my sister, Sarah, had found this apartment. By accident, by fate, by some cosmic joke that none of us could explain. I called Sarah immediately. You need to come over.
Now.
She arrived within the hour. I handed her the journal, watched her face as she read, saw the moment she understood. This is my birth mother's apartment? The apartment you own. Apparently, she lived here in the 70s. She wrote about you, about searching for you. Sarah sank onto the floor, the journal clutched to her chest. I felt drawn to this city, to this neighborhood. When I saw the listing, I just knew I had to book it. I didn't know why. Now I do. We sat together in the empty apartment, two sisters connected by blood, by fate, by a chain of events that defied explanation. Chloe's greed had brought Sarah to this place, but Margaret's love had brought her home. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotion. Sarah and I spent hours talking about Margaret, about the life she'd lived, about the love she'd carried. We visited her grave, left flowers, said the words she'd never gotten to hear. My mother, Sarah's adoptive mother, joined us, adding her own layer of complexity to the growing family. And Chloe? She made her first payment on time with a note. I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. A few weeks after finding the journal, I got a letter from a lawyer. Margaret, it turned out, had left a will. And in that will, she'd left her estate, a small savings account and a few personal items, to the daughter I never got to raise. The lawyer had been searching for Sarah for years, with no luck.
Until now.
So, what was in Margaret's estate? And what does it mean for Sarah, for me, for our strange, new family? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The final part is about inheritance, closure, and the family we find in the most unexpected places.
Subscribe.
The lawyer's office was small and cluttered, the kind of place where decades of files piled up in corners. Sarah and I sat across from a tired-looking man named Mr. Harrison, who pulled out a thin folder and began to read. Margaret Chen, deceased 1995. Last will and testament dated 1994. The estate consists of a savings account containing $12,847, a collection of personal effects, and this. He held up a small key. A safe deposit box at the First National Bank. The contents are unknown. Sarah gripped my hand under the table. 25 years after her birth mother's death, she was about to receive her inheritance. The safe deposit box was in a bank across town, one of those old buildings with marble floors and brass teller windows. Sarah's hands shook as she inserted the key. The box slid out, heavy with years of accumulated silence. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, tied with ribbon, addressed to Sarah at an old post office box. Letters Margaret had written over the years. Never sent. Never delivered. Letters full of love, regret, hope, despair. Dear Sarah, today is your 5th birthday. I wonder if you're happy, if you're loved, if you ever think about me. I think about you every day. I hope you know that giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever done. I hope you forgive me someday. Love always, Mom. Dear Sarah, I saw a girl today who looked just like you. Same smile, same laugh. My heart stopped for a moment. I know it wasn't you. You're grown now, probably with a life of your own. But for that moment, I let myself pretend. I love you. I always will, Mom. Dear Sarah,
I'm sick.
The doctors say it's serious. I may not have much time left. I've arranged for this box to be held for you, in case you ever come looking. If you're reading this, know that I never stopped loving you. Know that giving you up was the only choice I had, and it broke me every day. Please forgive me. Please be happy. Please know you were wanted. All my love, Mom. Sarah read each letter aloud, her voice cracking, tears streaming down her face. I held her hand, crying too, feeling the weight of a mother's love reaching across decades. At the bottom of the box was a photograph. Margaret, young and beautiful, holding a newborn baby, Sarah. On the back, in faded ink, "My daughter, the love of my life, June 3rd, 1970. Sarah clutched the photo to her chest. She loved me. All those years, she loved me.
She did.
And now you know. The micro niche here isn't just Airbnb fraud or property rights. It's about the strange, beautiful, inexplicable ways the universe brings people together. Chloe's greed brought Sarah to my door. Margaret's love reached across decades to find her daughter. And my mother's secret, buried for 50 years, finally saw the light. I don't believe in fate. I'm too pragmatic for that. But I believe in coincidence, in the way events can align to create something new and unexpected. I believe that people can change, that love can survive separation, that family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up again and again until you belong. Do you believe in fate or coincidence? Have you ever experienced a moment so strange, so perfect, that it felt like the universe was trying to tell you something? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's talk about the mysteries we can't explain, the connections we can't deny. And if this story of tenants, sisters, and cosmic justice resonated with you, share it. Sometimes, the worst situations lead to the best discoveries. Thanks for listening.